Thank you very much, Michael. From the Caribbean perspective, the Caribbean has a common community agriculture policy called CAPS, and it has 5 pillars. One is food and nutrition security, production, trade, value chain, sustainable development of natural resources, rural modernization and youth, a modern knowledge and information system. But our especially we are particularly interested in the food and nutrition security one because we participate in the design of the policy that came out of the Common Agriculture Policy. And also rural modernization and youth was one of the pillars in which our members from the Caribbean Farmers Network insisted and actually got accepted as one of the key pillars for the overall Common Agriculture Policy. In addition to that, right now, we are going through a situation where we are developing action plan and national food and security policy for each of the countries with the help of FAO, IFPRI, and all the other institutions, all that and spearheaded under CARICOM. We also have an agriculture disaster risk management subcommittee, which is headed by a minister of government, and our organization had play a key role in that, especially bringing the small farmer agriculture perspective. And as a result of that, we are designing our own agriculture risk management climate change policy within our own farmers organization. Added to that, what we did at the CARICOM level is to sometimes politicians and bureaucrats sit in a theoretical framework and make policies. But with our involvement, we insisted that the farmers must be classified into 3 categories because over 95% of our small farmers have under 5 acres. So we classify them as commercial, semi-commercial, and subsistence emerging farmers for the purpose of policy implementation, which gives a clearer picture and clearer actions so that you could target output in terms of getting the sector growing. And that has been working very well. In addition to that, another issue which we now push to the front, which is our own niche issue, is that we have insisted and we are taking action in the Caribbean Farmers Network along with some of its partners, to reorganize World Food Day. Because sometimes people act as if food comes from the supermarket and farmers have nothing to do with the production. To be called, so in this year, we are going to commemorate World Food Day as World Food Farmers and Fisher Folks Day. Because if this is the only thing we get out from the year internationally at the small family, it is going to be where small farmers and small farmers' role in food production would never be forgotten. And this is one of the things that we are pushing in the policy space. And finally, we have what we call a very innovative thing which was pushed by CARDI and IFPRI, which is called the Caribbean Week of Agriculture. And that is where all the ministers of government, ministries of agriculture, the institutions for agriculture, interact together to come up with ideas to push the sector forward. And that has been working very well. We have been improving upon it, and last year we had some colleagues from the Pacific visiting. So our policy framework is there, it's been built, and what we are trying to do is to put some legs to some of to some practical action, to some of the theory that has now been written and accepted overall in the region.
Thank you, Jethro. Could I ask you to comment how these policies actually integrate, in terms of the resilience and making the, when you look at the vulnerabilities in the Caribbean, you have still quite a huge food import bill. So in terms of that building resilience, yeah. How do you see the policy helping?
Okay. Well, Michael, I said the other day, somebody said to me, your food import bill is $5 billion. And I said to them, don't forget that 2 decades ago within the region, institutions like the World Bank and the IMF told the Caribbean region to get out of agriculture and focus on tourism. So the emphasis and most of the commitment to agriculture was de-emphasized and put in service sector. And those of us who struggle within the agriculture sector, it is not until the so-called food crisis that a lot of the government start to scramble and now start to talk about food security and etc. So I said to them, maybe if we were not in the sector, the food import bill might have been $10 billion. So what I'm saying, when you look at the meager resources and now that have been committed to the agriculture sector, I am saying that within the Caribbean region and the small farm sector, we have still managed to achieve reasonable growth with minimal resources because of the fact that in a large percentage of our rural communities, in a large percentage of our communities, although we have high food import bill, but most areas, a large percentage of the food that we use are grown within our region. And in fact, it is the basis we insist on in our food security. Not have a food security based on foreign import, but on things like roots and tubers and the kind of commodities that we grow within our region. So that is the kind of resilience. And to just add another thing to it, we are working with our partners like Cardi and Aika on roots and tubers. And you know the reason for that? Because every year we get a series of hurricanes. And those are the only crops that has been able to stand up to it. So it is, last year when the hurricane came and hit, our roots and tubers did just sustain about 2% damage. So these are the kinds of practical things on the ground that we are doing, not theoretical.